lesser than me. You are disadvantaged. You are born in some bush. They are going to define you. So you have to say, no, 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 no. I am not going to wait for anybody to define me. Define yourself. And this is something I taught my kids from early age. If you meet my son, he is very strong with his, and even the girls, on self-definition. I'm a Christian, I'm a Kenyan, I'm a Kikuyu, I'm a Mokorino. If you have any problem with any of those, that's your problem. Well, that's my son. I say, you don't have to be that emphatic, but all you need to do is to know yourself. Who are you? And once you establish yourself, you begin to brand yourself. It's called self-branding. The way you make yourself. God is a creator, and he created creators in us. That is why there are two words for creating. One word in the Bible that is reserved for God, and then another one that is used by human beings in their creative processes. We're called to create ourselves and sometimes to recreate ourselves. I call this one self-branding, which is a significant process in self-actualization. We need it. We need to self-actualize ourselves. You know, God wired us with a need. I call it an innate propensity to define ourselves and our place in the world and our role in that world within the familial and social circles. That's us. That's where we are. And we begin to assert ourselves in those environments. Self-definition involves making choices every day. Every day. All right. So this morning, I had to decide when I got up to put on a turban. Okay. It's a decision I make every day. I could just decide to not be a Mokorino. And because those choices are made by human beings. And I could make it too because I'm human. In my self-definition and my self-remaking, there's nothing wrong with decide, okay, now I'm going to be somebody else. So we are always making those kinds of choices every day. And those choices, my dear friends, become, listen to this, an amalgamation of the components of our personality. Those little choices in terms of self-defining ourselves, those choices that we make. What am I going to wear today? Okay. What am I going to wear to work today? Who am I? All right. So we are making our personality. And you see, as human beings, we crave acceptance, but also individuality. I want people to accept me, but I also want them to accept me as an individual, as myself, not in their own fashion. Is it fashion or version? Version of Solomon Waigwa. I mean, it's not who you think Solomon Waigwa is, it is who I think I am, and your idea of Solomon Waigwa needs to be captured by my own concept of who I am. So all these choices are ultimately guided by that need to self-define ourselves. And when we do so, we establish ourselves. This is who we are, and we are proudly so. We cannot be moved because God did not make junk and give it our name. Call it Solomon Waigwa. No, God made me with a good purpose. So in terms of self-actualizing ourselves and establishing who it is that we are, once we have done that, I know who I am. I am a woman. I am a man. I'm Kenyan. I'm Luo. those, sometimes in philosophy, we may call them accidents because you just happen to be. It was not your choice. You just happen to be. So now, once you have identified that, that becomes your base. Let's call it a base. That's who you are. Now we take you and bring you to America, or we take you to Latin America, or we take you wherever we take you. You're still you, and you have defined yourself, and you have created your personality. Remember, you are a creation of nature and nurture. So nature has made you, then society, your family has nurtured you, and you also get to nurture yourself in making yourself. So now you have that base that now has to come to America, and now it's that person now is rethinking how to progress in this new culture. But the most important thing is you are yourself. You have a base. Now, if you come here without that base, all awako, because you are going to be tossed up and down, and it's going to be total confusion to where you will not know yourself. And that confusion is happening with a lot of young people who are brought here by their parents, and in the process of their becoming, they are, that base has not fully developed, okay? The base of self-understanding and self-realization, who am I? So they move on very quickly to self-actualize, and in the process, they become something else that they were not, okay? So they will say, my name is, you should hear how they pronounce their names. My name is Ndorito, because the young man cannot say Derito. My name is Omoro. He can't say Omolo because he has not been schooled that way. Something happened because of the movement. The base was disturbed. The cement did not set. And that's the fault of the parent. So here's what I want to say. I want to give you a good example. Once you have understood now about the base, okay, now you can take that base anywhere and you can add things to it, okay? This is balancing the two cultures. If that base is strong, you can add any other thing. And the process of adding does not need to be in America. It has been happening ever since the world was created, when human beings interact. For those of you that come from Kenya, you know that among our communities, there was intertribal cultural borrowing. Some scholars think that the Gikuyu were very much Bantu, and most of the Bantus do not have circumcision, for instance, especially in Uganda and other places. And even in South Africa, they don't do that. And how did the Kikuyu begin doing that? Allow me to use the example of circumcision. Some scholars say it was their interaction with the Maasai. I don't know if that's true. So I'm just saying intercultural borrowing is not new that we have come to America. Even in Kenya, it did happen. Why do you think we call God Ngai? Is it an accident that the Maasai call the same God Enkai, and the Kikuyu call him Ngai? What about the Luo? They have Nyasai. And the Luya, which is a very different linguistic group, also call God Nyasai. Somebody borrowed from somebody else. That's common sense. It's not just by accident that they speak like that. So what the point I'm making here is intertribal borrowing has been here, and that did not change the Luo to become Luya, and Luya to become Luo. They maintained the base while adapting or borrowing new things. And that's the model that I would like to suggest, that you keep the base, and then add good things to the base. I hope everybody understands me before I leave that point. Grow the base, make it strong, then add things, good things, of course, judiciously to that base. I'm going to call that base using the analogy of paint. Now, you know, in painting, in the science of paint, not drawing, the paint, rangi, they have a base. If you want to paint your house, you can begin with a base paint. They call it tintable base paint. Tintable base paint. And tintable base paint is the base that it's called tintable base paints because it's used to form the foundation of a particular color. You want to come up with a green hue, and so you use a base paint that will receive different colors to arrive to the kind of color that you are making. So there are varieties of assorted tintable base paint, typically offered by paint manufacturers. And they include white. You can get a pastel, you can get a light one, you can get a medium one, you can get a deep one, or even a clear one. It can be clear, and you can add any other color. And it is called tintable base paint because tintable, meaning you can add other pigments to it to change its hue a bit. I hope I'm not being too technical here. I taught fine art in another life when I was in Kenya for about 15 years as a primary school teacher. So tintable paint, that base has to be very, very strong. And you can do this with any paint as long as the pigment paste has the right kind of binding fluid. In other words, if the tintable paint is oil, you cannot add anything that is not oil. You cannot add a watercolor. It's not going to work. So there's a thinking process there. Okay, the tintable paint, if it is water, the base is the vehicle, we call it in art. If it is water, then you cannot add oil paint. That's just common sense in mixing of paints. So what I'm saying here is that the tintable paint, you can add any color. Adding the wrong pigment would damage the base paint. Okay, and that is why you find some people who have been culturally deformed because they tried to add something that was counterproductive to the base. It could not work. So you have to be very careful because too much additives, then the paint will become a gray grog. The more you add, the lower the quality. So this is because we need authenticity and originality. So let me move on by saying this. The tintable base paint is your culture, your Kenyanness, your Christianity, who you define yourself. You came here properly formed. Unless you become deformed, you cannot be formed again. We can add value. There is a place for that. But we cannot form it anymore. You are already formed. But we can add beauty and we can add value to it. And you are that tintable base paint. Because people without knowledge of their history and their culture is like a tree without roots. That was said by Marcus Garvey, and it's something that is very valuable for us to understand. So as Kenyans in diaspora, we must ensure that future generation of Kenyan immigrants preserve that cultural tintable base, the Kenyanness, and use it to define themselves. This is who I am. Establish themselves and eventually entrench themselves as bona fide Kenyan Americans. I think that's very important. And some people have argued against this kind of paradigm by telling me, well, Americans don't do that. When they come here, they join the melting pot and they are all melted into Americans. And I say, that's a lie. Nothing is farther from the truth. Number one, we have cities here in this country that are German, others are Czech. Here in Texas, if you want that there's a city called West Texas. West Texas. It's not in West Texas, it's just called West. It's actually in Central Texas. And that city is famous for Czech culture, C-Z-E-C-K. You know, Czech, the Czechoslovakia, that's where they are from. And they are proud of that. And they have festivities. And they try to recapture their culture. And they try to recapture, I go there to celebrate with them. And they try to recapture even their language, which for some it's lost. And for those who can still speak it, they read poetry and they celebrate themselves because it's a good thing to be a Czech American. German towns, the same thing. Why can't I walk around this country as a Kenyan American, proud of my Kenyanness and proud of my Americanness? Blessed be the name of the Lord. So what I'm saying here is that I can keep my base paint, okay? Because culture is not biologically inherited. No, you know, it's not. It's not a biological entity. It is transmitted through learning from one generation to another. And that's the process we call enculturation. And you see, there are a lot of Kenyans who, when they come here, they are deculturated, okay? So here we have to be careful to control the mix. And that's why what we do in the Waigwa family, know who you are. And when you find something that you would like to adapt, do it thinkingly, okay? Think about it. Don't just take it, don't just grab. Remember, in adding new colors, what I call hue, because I'm an artist, when you add too many new colors to the tintable base paint, it lowers your quality because you are nothing. You are falling for everything. So there are two elements here that are very, very essential. Number one is authenticity. Be you. Be you, not Baylor University, where I graduated from. It's be you, yourself, who you are. Don't be a confusion, a cacophony of ideas put together to where the people do not know who you are or what you are. So authenticity, and the second one is originality. Now, if somebody is naive, they are going to very quickly say, well, authenticity is the same as originality. Mistaken. No. By originality, I'm talking about your genesis, your essence, who you are. That's your Kenyanness, okay? And that Kenyanness serves as the anchor point. You know, my people say, and that, for those of you that may not understand Greek, that is to say that a good knobkerry will be recognized from the point of its growth, from where it was uprooted. From that vintage point, you are able to appreciate the progress that you have made so far. This boy speaking to you was raised in central Kenya. I'm not anything like I used to when I was growing up herding sheep in the backwoods of my father's farm. because there has been some progress. I can see a vantage point. That's what I'm talking about. But from that base, from that vantage point, I have added other elements, like this language I'm speaking to you in. I have added other ideas, like the philosopher I am, the theologian I am, the concepts that I am. I don't believe in the Corino church exactly the same way that my father would believe, because there has been some progress, but I still have that base. Do you understand what I'm talking about? I am essentially Mokorino if you think about that. That's my base. But the way my mother was a Mokorino is different from the way I am a Mokorino in several aspects. Why? Because I have added some more values. I have not become devalued. I have added my value. So when I go back to that base, I become useful. And when I am here in America, I'm useful too. How many letters do I get every time from scholars wanting to know about my base? Just the other day, I evaluated an academic article from South Africa. They wanted to know whether this scholar is right in saying what he is saying about African Pentecostalism. Certainly, they would not send that paper to my mother, although my mother was Pentecostal. What's the difference between my mother and myself? We are both Pentecostals, African Pentecostals. That's what Akorino is. But this particular Pentecostal has added a value. So that's what I'm talking about. You're still useful at the base, and you are useful where you are going. And so as you add those new values, those new colors to your originality, to your tintable paint, authenticity sticks out. Authenticity now is different from originality. Authenticity sticks out and demands attention even as you proceed, as you're balancing yourself. I'm giving you these two things, originality and authenticity, because when you do not have those, the parameters become confused. You have no guardrails. You pick everything that you choose. That's why you find some Africans adopting atheism right here in America. And they want to ship it back home and say, we don't believe in God. There was no African who did not believe in the concept of God. That's not an African mindset, okay? The BT tells us in Things Fall Apart, actually it's page 8 of that book. He says, the African is notoriously religious. So I cannot depart from that base. I can add other ideas to it. So there should be no accidents here. It's not something that came on you by accident. You made a decision. You deliberated on it. And then you received it because it is going to add value. Let me see how we are doing on time, because I'd like to open to discussion. So a lot of thought is involved here. There is weighing of the ideas. There is choosing, making sure that what you are receiving is something valuable. Can you take this home to mama? Would she accept this if you take it back to the home base? So there is a lot of choosing, there is a lot of accepting, and there is a lot of rejecting, okay? And this is a process of being and becoming, and being again, and then becoming, and so on and so forth, in this dynamic process of diasporic living continuum. Because it's a continuum. We are still in the making. We ain't there yet. What I knew yesterday is not what I know now. We are always increasing ourselves. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So I want to just finish by saying this. We need those two guardrails on each side, originality and authenticity, and we can hold on to them and balance ourselves until we are able to stand on our 2 feet in our diasporic living. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Waigwa. That was very informative information. I am going to go ahead and open the session for questions. A little bit of housekeeping that I forgot to announce at the beginning of the meeting is that this is a recorded event and all mics are muted. If you have a question, please unmute yourself. Once you ask your question, please mute yourself back so that there is proper communication. All right, any questions?
I can start the comment.
Sure.
Yeah, my name is Joshua Wamuya. So I'd like first to thank Dr. Waigwa for the presentation. I feel this is we are undergoing what we can call it as a cultural renaissance for our people. I think Dr. Waigwa, you are very right, and but if you look at the history, and especially the people who come from Africa coming to this place, there are things that we come with. You know, there's for example, when I was growing up, my culture was whether in school, wherever I went, I mean, even speaking my mother tongue was a big problem. You know, we are always taught don't talk about speaking your mother tongue, and everything else that is glorified is Western, whether it's food, manners, way you dress, style, and everything. And also, you come here, and even among our brothers and sisters, you know, the way you speak, you know, they ask you, you've been here for so many years. How come that your accent has not changed? And you know, always you have this kind of debate whether, you know, where do you belong? And I think for me, when you talk about originality and authenticity, I feel like these are things that we need, and we stand our ground. And because we cannot just stay in a way that we are sort of in what I call myself like fake, you know, being fake. But the issue is about some of us who have come here, and we see that we haven't come out like what we have been taught for so many years. Actually, that was not true, because and at the same time, if you have my kids try to tell them about my culture, I still have some doubts. So what can we do as diaspora, Kenyans, Americans, or Nigerian Americans, to feel that we should be proud of our culture, and we are here? Of course, we should add value by integrating and, I mean, being part of this society. But at the same time, we don't feel like, you know, we are sort of not being isolated. I think that's very important, because most of us, we are just sort of fearing about, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm Kenyans, because maybe I may feel I might be discriminated at the job or wherever. But I think from my experience, just what you have mentioned about being original or the authenticity, I think that makes difference no matter what, because at the end of the day, people, you have to say that that's your problem, that you think I'm like this. But we still have that fear that we feel that we might be discriminated, and we have this narrative that we've been talking about since you were born, going to high school, university, after this moment that anything that from Western is better than our culture. So how can we reconcile those differences within our souls, even before we talk about our kids?
I think it's thank you. Can I say something? And I'm glad that you recognize those two parameters. I'm calling them parameters. The parameter of originality, who I am, being mindful of who this man is, and not pretending to be something else or somebody else. Okay, and then moving forward to add value. And as I do so, I'm doing it judiciously. In other words, I must assess whether this is value. Now, value has to do with pragmatism. Is this thing useful? So there are very many parameters that you have to consider in terms of taking the cultural value that you want to add. How valuable is it going to be to me? When I came to this country, and I have been teaching for the last 15 years, and I have been in graduate school, postgraduate school actually, for 10 years that I was in postgraduate school. So if you add that, because I was teaching students those years, teaching undergrads, and then the 15 years, going to 16 years that I have been teaching here, that's 26 years. And you come across, you're trying to tell somebody something, and when you say something, in the way I was taught to say it, they don't understand. Okay, when I go to the store and I say, "Can you give me a cotton swab? Can I buy a cotton swab?" Cotton swab. They will not know what you're talking about until you say, "Oh, Q-tip." So it's like we have to learn both of them. And so I'll say Q-tip because that's what they will understand. I can't insist on calling it a cotton swab just because that's the way it's called in Nairobi or in London. So you adapt, and because you don't want to be, "Oh, come again, sir. What did you say?" And this person is writing, so you you force your tongue to bring out words like them to avoid. Can you say that one more time? Can you say, slow down? Can you say that one more time? And in teaching Bible study in a 98% Anglo church for 15 years, I did that. Okay. And the old mamas are the most problem. So you have really to force your tongue to, and I was 40 when I started doing that. And to where now today, I don't have a problem, and I preach in white churches. I will have no problem. They don't feel, of course, they can tell that English is different, but not so different that they cannot hear. They can hear. So that's a value. I consider that one as a value. When I go to Nairobi, I want to call water, water, but I may call it water here. Okay. So shifting gears is something that I have learned to do. But even in Nairobi, I spoke English to my children because I wanted them to learn the language before they went to kindergarten. And I do remember now when we came here, then we had to shift gears. I said, the reason why we were speaking English in Nairobi at the house was because the community was speaking Swahili and English and Kikuyu, and therefore English was not taken care of by the community. Well, here now, the society, the community is speaking in English. So we are going to shift gears here, and we are going to have to speak in Kikuyu and Kiswahili. Those are the languages acceptable here. Used the belt a couple of times, and people forgot speaking English at the Waigwa house. It's never spoken here unless we have a guest. And those kids who came, unajua mtoto, that you had to pad the kiti ya ndege kwa sababu kutanyecha usiku tukienda. So you have to pad that seat. I mean, the kids were little, they were babies, but they still speak that language. And when they go home to their grandmother, they speak to her, you would not believe that they have studied all the way to PhDs, and now they're home. Imagine, my son took his wife to Nairobi, taking advantage of COVID because he said, hey, I'm working in DC. We're not going to the office. I can work in Nairobi too. So they have their house in Nairobi. So they went back. He wants the wife to become acclimated to her new culture. And that's the word. And so we are always doing this, intertribal, intercultural. But I want to leave you with this. I think the other guiding principle is, once you establish originality, is authenticity. Remember the word authenticity? Can you hear the word author in that word? Authenticity. It's because you are an author. God authored you, God made you, but the making is not finished. You're still making yourself. You are the one who decides whether you are going to do nursing or you're going to do something else. You are in the process of, and you make those choices. And you know, you choose what to adopt. So authenticity is, you are the author. You are doing this. Of course, God is involved because you are a praying person. But then it's authentic. It's the real you. This is not somebody else. This is you. Professor Waigwa, you know, my mother, when I became a doctor and went back to Nairobi, and people were making fun of calling me Dr. Waigwa. You know how when you a new doctor. And my mom was like, Solomon, did you stop? You don't preach anymore? You don't teach students anymore? I said, why? They're calling you a doctor. Now you work in the hospital? I said, oh, mama, no. Because she didn't understand. I had picked a new value. But even with the new value, I ordered myself to where I can be read by my mother. So what I'm saying is, you balance like that. Originality, authenticity, and you move on like that, because I was asked to talk about balancing ourselves in the diaspora environment. And I think I'm giving you these two because I think they're very, very important, because they demand a lot of thought as we move on. And if you can give your children that, to where now they are able to make a decision by themselves. Oh, no, I don't like that. That's not me. That is not me. I think that's very, very important. Once you have given them the idea of the tintable paint. This is who they are, okay? And so they will not say, hey, by the Joneses down the street, they let their children go for sleepovers. Let me use that because that's a problem with many Kenyans. You don't sleep over if you are a Waigwa, unless there's a church sleepover, and we know that family, okay? So if my son, my daughter said, well, but the Joneses children, they always go wherever they want. You know, the answer is, you are not the Joneses. That's not the paint you are. That's a different one over there. So be you, okay? Be you, be original, and then proceed authentically, balancing yourself in diasporic living. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muya and Dr. Waigwa. The next question is coming from Abiola. Abiola, kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. I just have something to say. I hope everyone can hear me. I like when the doctor said, be yourself. You know, we are in a total culture, totally different from us. I mean, I don't know in Kenya, even now when you go to Nigeria, when I was there when I was growing up, we still speak our local language, you know, our dialect. In fact, you can be in the same state and you don't understand each other. That's how it is in Nigeria. And we are so proud of speaking our language. And I remember when I came here to this country, I have to start going back to school. But what I just want to say is that it's good for us, you know, as an adult, you know, we should just be ourselves. It's good for us to improve ourselves. But, you know, up to now, I still have some words that I cannot pronounce, like America. And I just said this, you know, I don't think I can change my mother tongue. I study hard, but I can't change my mother's tongue. You know, I work as a case manager, and sometimes my families will say, oh, we can't understand her. My supervisor will say, well, she speak English. You just need to listen to her, and then you understand what she's saying. She speak English, you know, and that really give me confidence, you know, when I'm going to work to do my job, you know. But those who say we can't understand you, you know, because they see me as, you know, as a foreigner and as an African and a Black woman, they don't want me. And that's why they say, oh, we don't understand her. Can you give us another case manager? You know, and my supervisor will just tell them, you can't deal with her. I don't have nobody to replace her with. So you just have to listen to her. And that has been working very well with me. And, you know, so with our children, with all our culture, I always tell my friends here, I say, America cannot change me from whom I am. I'm a Black African woman. I've come with all the value I need to succeed in this country. There's nothing that America can give me that can change whom I am. I'm still a Black African woman. And that's always reflects in me with anything I do. And I remember some people will say, oh, why you dress like this? Why you have this on? I say, well, I like, you know, I told them in my culture, when you become a woman, a married woman, the way you dress in the society is different. And I'm used to it. And in my job, I dress like that to go to my job, and they already knows me with it. Whether they like it or not, some people say, oh, we love this, we love that. I'm not sure whether it's deep down in their heart, but that is whom I am. So that is very good. I like this this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abiola. The next question is from Nancy. And her question is, how do you balance between yourself and your children?
So that question is, how do you balance between yourself and your children?
Yes. Nancy, do you mind unmuting yourself to clarify the question? Is it in terms of culture?
I think she means in terms of culture, but your culture and balancing them and the kids also.
Well, I think different parents would answer this differently. I am a firm believer that I am not a parent by accident. I like to think of a family as an institution, a factory producing people, human beings, and we raise them as products. And once we have raised them, we pass them on to society so that they can serve humanity. That's how I tell my children. And so in every factory, they have a product, and they decide what kind of a product they want. Okay, this is the product we are designing. So the product in my family is a human being who is, first and foremost, I'd like for them to be a Christian, you know. So I'm going to raise them like that. I'd like for them to learn my language so we can be able to communicate. And I want them to be able to not socially cut themselves from their roots. And so there are going to be some dynamics that are going to be uniquely this family as opposed to another family. So this is The child has no choice. There are some things that I don't give my children a choice, okay? I am not going to give my children the choice of whether to eat green vegetables. If little Johnny just wants to eat, what do you call those things that they warm in the microwave? In a kakama macaroni, what do you call those things?
Noodles.
Kids like,
Noodles.
huh?
Noodles.
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 Yeah.
All right, ramen noodles. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anataka tu ramen noodles doesn't want the greens. He is not going to have his way because I know I'll be taking him to the ER very soon if he has his way. So I am going to make, I'm going to, hey, whatever mama puts on the table, that's what you are going to eat. If there is more, then you can make a choice. But you have to eat some greens. You need some carbs. You need some vitamins, that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is, there are some things that life does not give us a choice. I don't have a choice whether to go to work. So why do parents think that everything, there is a choice? I can't choose not to work. I will not keep this house. I can't, what about my car? What about my bills? It's not a choice. You have to go. You get up in the morning, and kids must learn that everything is not a choice. And when they say it's not fair, I tell them life itself is not fair. So here's the deal. You cannot choose to go to school. This is what we say here in the Waigwa family when they were growing up. You don't yawn in bed and stretch when you get up, and then you ask yourself whether you are going to go to school. That question does not even begin to be formed in your brain. And if it forms in your brain, you deserve a beating before even you get it out. If I know that that question is forming, will I go to school? Today is a Monday. School is where you go Monday through Friday. No choice. On Sunday morning, oh my God, I say it with the anointing. On Sunday morning, you don't even think whether you will go to church. Church is where you go. And there's only one church that we go to in this family. It's called Rema Gospel Church. So basically, when you do that, every Sunday, every day, you form habit. You form habit so that even when they are grown, when they decide the church where they decide to go, where they are working, they will never miss church and they will never miss academics. So what I'm saying here is this, that life is not just choices. Some things come fixed that we have to do. And we have to guide our children like that sometimes and tell them that's the reality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Waigwa. The next question we have is from Lucy. Lucy,
Yes,
can you unmute yourself?
yes, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Waigwa. I'm so honored to listen to you. And, I just love the analogy of the paint. And you said about, if I can refer back to your notes about the society and nurturing our children. And of course, us as parents having the upper hand to nurture them as they grow. But also we know there is that the culture, that's where I'm coming to, whereby we see that some of our children, as much as parents meaning well, the counterculture has taken over, and the values and norms of behavior differ from the mainstream society that we know, even as Kenyans. As much as we want to teach them, I know sometimes as parents, most of us have failed in that part of, instilling they say those that do not have what the language, is like we are slaves, So there are those things that mainly maybe we have not taught them. But I'm going to the counterculture that really, as parents, what would you advise us? Those that are fallen prey of counterculture. And also we have all these social media. Our children are being bombarded every side. You teach them this. Of course, we know the base, and I really love that part of the base. The foundation should be strong. But truth be told, we know there are these challenges of parenting. So what's your advice about counterculture that we are facing?
I think on that one, it is true. A lot of damage has been done already in a lot of families. And this question I'm asked everywhere I go in parenting seminars and a couple of seminars and churches, because it's a true reality. But truth be told, the ball was dropped somewhere. The life of this country is such that it's easy to drop the ball. So let's not just say that these kids are just bad. No. And by the way, it's not just kids in America. It's happening in Nairobi too. It's happening in Nairobi. You know, we went to the Akorino conference. It was in Nyeri one time. We had been here 10 years without going to the US, to Kenya. So when we went to that conference and my children gave their testimonies in Kikuyu, and the people, the kids in Nakuru, in Nyeri town, in Nairobi, were like, wow, these people are speaking good Kikuyu. How come we cannot speak good Kikuyu? And that challenged some kids. And I know one of my friends' kid who went to use music to relearn English. So I want to say this, even for those kids that the base paint has been erased a little bit, there is a way to recapture that if there is a need, if there is a will. And I have a number of young people in this country who have recaptured who they are. I don't have their permission right here. Maybe one of them, I have their permission. And that is Karinge, who is a college student in Boston, a young man that I met several years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. He was in elementary school at that time, and I fell in love with the young man. And so this young man, he's like my son. And this young man, I've worked with him and now he's a preacher. He's a great preacher. But what I want to say is, he speaks good Kikuyu. What he did was to learn and just want to learn. And he began listening to Gikuyu music and singing Gikuyu music. And if you call him today, please, I invite you to call that young man. He is going to speak to you in good Gikuyu. I know of another friend who has a daughter who, when we were in college in Georgia, she could not speak Kikuyu. She was in first, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, thereabout. Do you know today that young lady is a professional because she has finished her degrees and she speaks good Gikuyu. If there is a will, there is always a way. There is this learning online, there is shifting the gears and saying, no more English in the house. We are speaking Gikuyu here. But understand this. We're not just saying the language. Language is just one element of culture. You can still be, African even without the language, as long as the behavior and the cultural patterns and those other parameters of our culture, like honesty and respect, those things are intact. We need to recapture those. So that, respect for parents, working hard, okay? The problem is we succeed, and I want to say this very carefully. For many of us, we allow our society to over-influence the family, okay? What I did was to say, I am not going to allow that. You are going to be members of this home. You go to the rest of the world and meet the rest of the world, and then you come here. This is where you live. And I know that may be said But I'm saying we can redo what we have failed to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Waigwa. We have come to the end of our hour. And so we are going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. But before we do that, I am going to say that we are ambassadors of our nations. We are ambassadors of who we are as Africans. And if we do not hold our culture, we will let the media tell our story. So be vigilant in how you represent your culture. Be vigilant in how you represent your ethnicity out there, because at the end of the day, it is us who are going to change what other people perceive us as Africans. I am going to go ahead and hand the meeting back to Jeffrey.
Ma'am, before you do that, ma'am, I'm reading some very good questions here that we have no time for. So I have given my number.
Okay.
For people who would like to follow up, because I thought these are very, very good questions that we cannot exhaust here because of the time. But this conversation can continue because this is where the shoe is hurting the most.
True.
And people are hurting. People are hurting. There is cry in many homes. I have stories and stories of people who are weeping because of this problem. Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about this. And I'm not Mr. Know-it-all. My methods do not necessarily mean they're the best. We can all discuss this problem and arrive to a concrete decision. But thank you very much for having me. God bless you.
God bless you too. And for those who have questions, this is not our last session. We plan on doing more sessions on culture balancing. We will have another session in February. We will send out the information as soon as we confirm with the speaker on the availability. So please keep the questions coming. Let us have these conversations. Over to you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That was very, very helpful. I appreciate Dr. Waigwa for your great wisdom and great knowledge on this topic. I think like most of everybody I can see in the forum, we cannot get enough of you. We hope that we can be able to have you again, maybe next month. But I think also the people who have questions, they can always send those questions even before the meeting, so that we can be able to share that information to our speaker. They can use the question to prepare the presentation. And I think because of time, I had promised that today we're going to make it 1 hour. And I think we're just a few minutes over. So just wanted to invite you for the next event that is